Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. Here we are in week number 3 of Ivan Reitman month as we are building anticipation towards the upcoming release of Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is going to be directed by his son, Jason, right?
Jason.
I'm
Yes.
blanking
Yep,
on his name for some
Jason.
reason.
You've
Jason
only been
Wright.
you've only been saying it for like the last 3 weeks.
Jason Reitman. So we're talking about his daddy's films, who obviously he directed the first Ghostbusters. Last week we talked about Kindergarten Cop. This week we are talking about his collaboration with Mr. Bill Murray, John Candy, and Harold Ramis in 1981's Stripes. I'm Casey Kelderman. Join with me, as always, is my co-host Sam Lenz, Brian Mensing. Boys, how are you?
I'm
doing
doing boom
good.
shakalaka good.
Sounds like Sam got his nap today.
Razzle dazzle.
And razzle and dazzling his way onto the podcast for the first time. Another Bill, not Bill Murray. We got a better Bill. We got Bill. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to throw that out there. No pressure on the show at all.
A bill that can handle technology.
A Bill that will pick up the cell phone.
A bill that has the cell phone.
A bill
Whoa.
that you don't have to wonder will show up to set on the day of.
Yeah. That you have to track down on a golf course to find out if he's going to be in your movie or not.
Yep.
Because I don't play golf, so there you go. So. And I never leave the house. I'm real easy to find.
Oh man, Bill, you and I are gonna get along great. I don't lose mine either.
Well,
Thanks for having me on, fellas. I appreciate it. This is pretty cool. I know we have mutual friends through SuperCon, and I'm pretty sure that's how I ended up following you guys on the social medias and everything. So I appreciate you giving me the invite.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a full circle. Like we've been doing stuff with SuperCon for a while, and I know you've been with them as well. But somehow our paths have never crossed ways in person at all.
Right.
For some
We never
reason
had
or
direct meetings, so
Yeah,
I'm sure I saw you guys a couple times, at the convention at various times, but
Mhm.
didn't make it there this year. But so
Well, Bill, for people that don't know who you are, what you do, who is Bill?
well,
Who are you? What is your story?
I am a native South Dakotan, born and bred here, lived most of my life here. From a little town called Ree Heights, South Dakota, in Han County, and about 50 miles west of Huron and about 60 miles east of Pierce, so right on Highway 14 there. So that's where I grew up. 60 people, I think, is about the average population in that town. So with high school, we're back living there now. I'm currently my mom's caretaker, but I dabble in short fiction writing. I do illustrations. Also, I'd say dabble, but have short stories published a few different places, and also publish them on my own website, which is woefully neglected right now, but it's still there at least. So
It's alive. That's what counts.
Yes, it's on life support, but it still has a heartbeat. So if you go in and poke it with a stick, it'll move a little bit. So little stimulus response anyway. So, but yeah, so if I'm on Twitter at William DeGeest, Instagram at William_DeGeest. If anyone wants to check out anything I've post or do anything like that, they're free to do that. So, but in general, that's
Awesome.
been a movie person, comic person, science fiction, horror, all that stuff since I was a kid. A lot of the family were big readers and big movie watchers, and type of family that bought all the comedy albums back in the 60s and early 70s, and even the ones they would put out records that had clips from television shows. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with those. So like they would have would have an LP of clips from Sanford and Son and All in the Family and stuff like that, and so we'd listen to stuff like that as well. Then Shelley Berman and the Smothers Brothers, and
They've probably never seen LPs that old.
Oh no, I have. I have my dad's old collection back at my grandma's place. I used to listen to all of his. This hasn't aged particularly well, but I used to listen to all of his Bill Cosby records.
yes, we had all the Bill Cosby ones as well.
What?
Sadly,
I
they're
don't
kinda
listen to them
difficult to listen
anymore.
to. Yeah, they're
Sounds like we need to cancel Sam now.
To be fair, I haven't listened to them since probably, I don't know, middle school, maybe? I don't know.
Since before he became a creepy old man.
Yeah. Well, before I knew he was a creepy.
Before everyone knew he was a creepy old man.
So,
apparently a few people knew. It just wasn't talked about.
yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Funny
Anyway,
how that
Hollywood
works.
That's a
works like
whole
that.
nother thing.
That's a whole
Let's-
different podcast.
Let's
Yeah.
not talk about Ghost
That's-
Dad. Let's talk about something else.
This isn't
Bill,
a true crime podcast, so
not yet, anyway. Bill, what's your history with movies? What did you grow up on? What kind of movies did you watch growing up, and what are you watching now that's like this is my type of movie?
growing up I grew up in the 70s, born in 1970, and so that was back when you would still see movies that were years and years old would still make it into theaters, because that was the only way they would be shown unless they were pop up on
Yep.
television. So you'd get that opportunity to see movies on the big screen. And of course, being 7 years old in 1977, Star Wars, of course, that was the seminal moment.
That little indie film.
Yeah, that little indie film that plucky director George Lucas pulled together. But
I've heard of it.
yeah, it's not as well known nowadays, but you know. But watched a lot of Godzilla movies. Ray Harryhausen was a personal hero of mine. A lot of comedy too, like I was talking about the comedy albums and everything. So we saw a lot of the comedies and everything, and had one uncle in particular named Ted, who he had no filter for adult material when it came to me and my brother when we were younger. So we'd go over to his place, and you know, he'd have heavy metal comics, and we'd see stuff like Stripes when we weren't really supposed to be watching those sorts of things when we were 11 years old. And he didn't care. It was like, yeah, you'll see it sometime. So, and he was a big science fiction guy too, big comic book guy. So that's where a lot of my influences came from. The guy, he introduced me to Harlan Ellison. Most of the comic books I ever read, I had the opportunity to do the panel with Mike Grell a couple years ago at SuperCon, and that was just a treat for me because my Uncle Ted introduced me to Warlord when I was a kid. So that he was a pretty big influence when it comes to different the different genres and different influences I have as an adult. And as far as nowadays, I don't even know what my watching habits are, because there's so much content out there that's available. With all the streaming services and everything, it's just I jump around from thing to thing, you know. I feel like I'm years behind on stuff that just came out. So it's hard to keep up.
It's not that hard to do to get behind.
Yeah, exactly.
As somebody who's tried to watch as much as I can this year, even I'm behind.
Right.
So it's not that hard to do.
Right. Just recently, well, just this last weekend, went to Eternals. So, you know, seen most of the Marvel stuff. Went to Dune 2 weekends ago. So I still watch stuff like that. Trying to think what just stuff. Trying to even think of what I've been watching it's difficult because there's just so much stuff out there.
Yeah.
Looking forward to watching the new season of Lock and Key on Netflix, like that first season. You know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So anyway,
Nice.
Yeah, I want to jump into today's movie because I'm very excited to talk about it. This is a movie that has been brought up on the show a couple times before. I know it's a favorite of many people. Stripes, 1981. Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, Ivan Reitman, dream team together for this movie here. So let's jump into it. I want to jump off with if we all remember the first time we watched this movie, what our first reaction was. Like, was it simply just the Bill Murray reaction? Is that why we all watched it? I'm very curious because I'll jump into mine then, because I had only watched this probably 7 years ago or so, 7-8 years ago for the first time, and it was simply just because I was trying to watch Bill Murray movies I had never seen before, and I was like, all right, Meatballs, okay. What's next? All right, Stripes, sure. Okay, I'll watch that. Groundhog Day, all right, I'll watch that. Like, it was just a Bill Murray trying to catch up on Bill Murray movies. And yeah, this is one of the big standouts. I've always loved John Candy, especially. So seeing him in this movie is awesome. Early John Candy role. So yeah, I don't have a very long history with this. I didn't grow up with this one as a kid. What about anyone?
Because you're like 12 with a beard, that's why.
I am 12 with a beard. What about anyone else? Sam, I can see you
I
ready
did
to
grow up on this one, yeah. This was actually one of the first rated R movies I ever saw. My family was my parents were very weird. They did not like me watching anything that was super violent. I was not allowed a lot of R-rated action movies or horror movies. I had to sneak those in whenever I could. But for some reason they were okay with like cursing and comedies, and especially like nudity. Like, didn't matter. Wedding Crashers was something that they got for me, the unrated version, like well before I was probably ready to see that. So yeah, this was one that my dad was like, "Oh, this is really funny. You got to check it out." And so he literally went out and bought it on DVD because he knew I had friends coming over later that week. He's like, "You guys got to watch this." And so like my initial reaction to this movie was, "Oh my God, boobs." And then I watched it a couple more times, and like I always watched it to like about the graduation ceremony. And after that, I just start doing other things. Like after the graduation ceremony, this movie just lost me every time. I love all the stuff leading up to that. But once that's over, it even as a kid, it just never. The first two acts of this movie are perfect. I love them. And then after that, I couldn't care less about what happens. So it was just weird. That's always been my experience with this movie, and I was kind of hoping that I'd have a different experience revisiting it. I hadn't seen it since probably like early high school, and so it's been like well over a decade. And the stuff I like, I still really like.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that haven't quite aged well with this one, as we kind of talked about earlier. But yeah, no, I dig Bill Murray in this. I really love Harold Ramis. I think this is one of his best comedic performances for sure. Yeah, I like this movie, and it does kind of hold a special place in my heart. It's not one that I revisit a lot, but I'm glad that we did get to circle back around to this one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you the first time I saw this movie, but it definitely was probably before I was technically probably old, should have been watching this movie. And it's one of those things that I was a big Ghostbusters guy when I was a kid. There's the two big movies in my household for me to watch, and that's three: Back to the Future, Goonies, and Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you get two of the four Ghostbusters I get in this movie, so of course you want to watch it. And it is one of those kind of things where you're like, as a kid, you're like, there's things in this I probably shouldn't be watching. These things I shouldn't be seeing, i.e. a mud wrestling event that happens in this here.
The image that always sticks with me is that stuck with me over the years is PJ Souls coming out of the like cabinet at the edge of the bed. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the part that always stuck with me as a kid.
That was interesting.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's this is one of those movies I usually revisit at least once every couple of years or whatnot. I just get into a binge of like, oh, I'm just gonna rewatch some movies I haven't seen for a while, and this usually is one of those ones that comes up. As soon as it was available to get on digital, because I have easy access for it. It was an easy decision. Plus, it's the extended cut, which adds like 20 odd minutes to the theatrical release.
Where do those
So
20 minutes come in?
I don't remember because I haven't seen the theatrical one in
Okay.
such a long time. I
So I
don't
was about
even
to say,
remember.
depending on where those 20 minutes come in, I'm either interested in seeing that or I'm totally not.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, I was excited when we started talking about Ivan Reitman movies other than Ghostbusters. I'm like, we need to do Stripes.
Mhm.
Screw Kindergarten Cop. I'd rather do Stripes.
Yeah, weirdly enough, like, I mean, Draft Day obviously is the newest one we're going to do this month, but like all three of these movies that we've covered, Ghostbusters, Kindergarten Cop, and Stripes, I have very vivid childhood memories of. And I never would have, like, as a kid, I never would have thought they were all directed by the same person. In fact, until Casey brought up Kindergarten Cop as one we could do this month, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know Ivan Reitman did that one. Like,
Mhm.
I was just never looking at the director of Kindergarten Cop, like,
Well, this movie for me, it was a staple of the video revolution. People get together, in high school, well, junior high, go in a parent's basement and take the VCR down there and watch these tapes, or hope someone has HBO and is showing on HBO, and we'll watch it on the sly so the parents don't know about it, and because that's the aforementioned boobs, of course, and with Bill Murray, of course, he was already an icon at that point with Saturday Night Live, and that was one of the things. Another thing we'd sneak out on Saturday nights and watch stuff, and all half the jokes would go right over our heads because we didn't know what they were talking about, but all that whole cast, that first group of performers, all pretty much went on to become legends. But this, and so with Bill Murray coming up like this, that's what everybody wanted to see was Bill Murray, because I mean he did essentially play the same character for quite a few movies. I mean, he was just the same. Well, that's the one thing about Ivan Reitman in this, is that he plays such a different character as from Egon in Ghostbusters. It really shows off what he could do comedically, because he was probably underrated as a performer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, compared to Ghostbusters, Harold Ramis, this one is like, he has the ability to be an individual kind of person. Whereas like, he can't, for Egon, he kind of has to stay in that scientific box.
Right.
So this one, and that's one of those things that I think as a kid I got a kick out of it. It's like, that's not how Egon is supposed to talk.
Yeah.
This is not my Egon, But that's
I remember
also
the
one of the
first
things that
time watching
fascinated me about it.
this. Yeah. I remember the first time watching this because Egon has always been my favorite Ghostbuster. And so, I go into this expecting Harold Ramis to be, Ramis is Egon. And the first time he swears, I'm like, wait, what?
Who is this
Like,
man?
Is this
And the
that's
hair.
not okay. Like, yeah, and the hair
And
gets me,
it's
like,
and it's 70s afro.
and I will
Speaking of
say,
hair.
like,
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, I just his scene in the English as a second language classroom is just one of the funniest things, and I totally had forgotten about it. So when I like, as soon as it started, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot this. Like, I forgot this was Stripes, and it was just a joy to be able to see that again. Like, yeah. But what were you saying, Bill?
It's just the hair thing. We have to talk about when they get their haircuts. How, weirdly enough, Ivan Reitman chose to have Bill Murray and Harold Ramis not quite get the buzz that everybody else got, like John Candy got. Weirdly enough, kind of like I suppose Bill Murray not getting quite as much marshmallow fluff on him at the end of Ghostbusters, I suppose. I'm sure he said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that."
Mhm.
But it also lends to the joke because when you're going through that or whatever, you didn't have to have the complete buzz cut kind of
Right.
thing and whatnot. But all these guys are so naive. They're like, oh, must be what I need to do when I go to the army. It just buzzed my head, and these guys walk out because they're Harold Ramis, Bill Murray, and then Jen Reinhold comes. One other one comes out with like normal hair, and they're all like, what just happened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Police Academy does a riff on that too, and that's something that I was noticing while I watched this. Is I'm like, man, Police Academy essentially just used this template, like Police Academy is Stripes, and I'll drop a hot take that I think I actually prefer Police Academy. Just because I think it's strong all the way through as opposed to where I feel like Stripes kind of falls off. But I do think that if Stripes had ended at the 1 hour and 15-minute mark, right around the graduation ceremony, Stripes would hands down be the better movie in my opinion.
Well, we'll save that for the Steve Guttenberg month that we will eventually do and talk all Guttenberg
you
all
can't
month.
tease me with the Steve Guttenberg month and not deliver. So we
Sam, do you
have to
not
get
think we will
Guttenberg
ever do a Steve Guttenberg month? Come on.
What about a Michael Winslow month, fellas?
Oh,
How about a year? A year of Michael Winslow. How about that?
There's enough Police Academy movies to at least fill half the year, so that's good.
Yeah.
Just him making weird noises. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
You could make a career off of it. And
I was gonna say this movie. Bill Murray is giving. He is not trying in this movie at all, and I kind of love it because this is straight up like you hear the stories of, especially Ghostbusters. Well, we don't even know if Bill's going to show up to shoot this movie. That's how this one feels too. Is yeah, sure, we'll give him the script. He's not going to read anything off it. He's not going to be a character. He's going to just play Bill Murray this entire time. Like his character is literally just Bill Murray in real life, being very sarcastic, snarky. Even when he has interactions with PJ Souls, it's like, yeah, you were doing this in Ghostbusters, and you were like delivering the exact same lines. It's kind of hilarious.
Well, and it's just same character as Meatballs. I mean, really, and from what I've read, and is that there was a lot of improv on this as well as Ghostbusters and probably every Bill Murray movie. So that's just a comfort zone for him being that guy, because I think that's probably a lot like what he actually is. So.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's just like, okay, here's the skeleton of what we need to get. You just fill in the rest because you're not going to read what I write down anyway.
Right.
Bill Murray in the 80s definitely strikes me as the type that uses the script as an outline as opposed to an actual roadmap.
Like, I need to get to point A to point B. Whatever's in between the two doesn't really matter as long as I get us to those points.
Yeah.
Like, I think
the only ones where I think there might be a little bit of, okay, we need to keep a little bit to the structure is between him and Warren Oates.
Yeah.
Because of just the dynamic of those two face to face to each other. Unless Warren can keep up with Bill, there's no way that couldn't have been completely ad-libbed.
I think Bill Murray was more so I just don't want to get my ass kicked.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like, there are those times where even Bill's probably like, okay, I got to pick my battles. He looks like he can genuinely kick my ass. I mean, even to the point when we're talking about when he goes for the swing, like sometimes I feel like just the look on it tells me that Warren really hit him. And that little gasp of air was actually real. At least you kind of think of the way Bill Murray was and whatnot, and you think that actually could have been what had happened, and I've even been like, I'm keeping that shit in the movie.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm still not convinced that Richard Dreyfuss didn't strap real TNT around him. And what about Bob? Judging from all the behind the scenes stories in that one.
I have a personal philosophy that anything that has Warren Oates in it, I will watch. Doesn't matter how bad it is, doesn't matter what it is. Warren Oates, I'll watch it. But I seem to recall a story that during the obstacle course scenes, Ivan Reitman told a bunch of the guys to tackle Warren Oates into the mud pit, and Warren Oates chipped a tooth, and he got up, and Ivan Reitman's career was almost over at that point. He came unglued on him, and there were no more hijinks like that again with Warren Oates on that film, from my understanding. So,
Oh my God, yeah.
and that was one of his last movies too. He died a year later. He was 53, which I'm 52. Oh Lord, I hope I don't look. He looked way older than 50.
I was gonna say, if he was 53 when he passed away, knowing that movie was just a year or two before that, tells me he did not age well.
Yeah,
because he clearly does not look like he's 53. He definitely looks like he's older than that.
Well, a lot of westerns out in the sun all day, and I'm thinking he had a bit of a nicotine habit too. A lot of those old guys from that era did. So
I was about to say there's a strong chance he was probably a heavy chain smoker.
Yeah, probably. No, but yeah, I'll watch. But yeah, that's one thing is very interesting about this movie too, is throwing someone with the chops as Warren, and you needed that. You really need that in this movie to have a good foil for the rest of the cast in that, to have someone, because you need some, you couldn't, because if you had someone who couldn't pull off that intensity, you wouldn't take them seriously as a antagonist for these guys as the drill sergeant. So,
well, I mean, pretty much everybody in this movie is a goofball. Everyone besides him is a big goofball. Especially John Larroquette, Captain Stillman is just the biggest goofball in this movie within the army group. I love
him from John Larroquette.
He's so funny in this. Like just him playing with the toy soldiers and like shooting off the cannon. And I'm like, yeah, you guys that's plucked straight from an Animal House script, moved over to Stripes and put into this one.
So speaking of Animal House into Stripes here and whatnot, for the sake, because one of those things I think of with that extended version, I think, is when he is got the monocle thing or whatnot, and he's looking across the way. How long is that shower scene?
A good 20 seconds.
Because I'm pretty sure it's longer than that in my version and whatnot. So immediately the first thing I think of is Porky's.
Right.
Well, it's funny. I was just looking up some stuff about this movie, and I read somewhere that Ivan Reitman, it was like a quote from Ivan Reitman that was like, he was on the way to the Meatballs premiere when he came up with the idea for this movie. And he said essentially his idea for Meatballs was just Animal House at a camp. And his idea for Stripes was just Animal House in basic training. And so he just kind of used that same Animal House template for these movies. And
they worked.
Yeah, it works because like all three of them differing extents for sure, but all three of them are classics,
Well, I mean, look at another movie that these guys are all connected to, Caddyshack. Caddyshack is just Animal House on a golf course. Like they all take that template of Animal House and do something else with it along the way, and have enough difference in it. I think this one leans, especially towards that third act, which we'll get to, leans to a slightly more serious tone, but also kind of has that outrageous third act that those movies have too.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't know. I think it's the weakest of those, because I'm kind of with Sam too. I think this movie peaks at Graduation, and I'm like, just extend everything up till that point and then have Graduation. Even the ending of this movie is the Animal House ending, but with the Stripes characters of where are they now? What are they doing now after this?
It's just magazine covers instead of
I love the different magazine covers though.
And I feel like all of those could have been done. Like, I know part of it is like, oh, they came back heroes, but you could still have made them come back heroes without actually having to see that. Or I don't know, maybe even just come up. There's just something that loses me in that third act where it's just like,
See, I
I
think
get
the
what they were
problem.
going for. It just doesn't work for me.
I think the problem that we run into is we spend so much time in those first two acts in basic training that the third act feels so rushed that it's
Yeah,
just we're in, we're out,
Mhm.
we're kind of thing, because there are good things about the third act.
there are.
Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but it is one of those things that I do think that it's like if it would have been, I think if it would have been more paced out to maybe the segue from basic to going to Germany or whatever it was more like in the middle of the second act, and you kind of had it in two pieces that way. I think probably would have played better, and I think that's one reason why I think some people do have a problem with that third act is just because it's just boom, we're in it, boom, we're done. We
Yeah,
don't have
it's
enough
very
time to really.
abrupt.
Yeah. And I think
Right.
we as an audience already feel like this group is won after graduation. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Right.
yeah,
Their
that's
big
it.
victory is graduation
It's-
to me. Like, that's
and
their
that's
growth.
and that's where you could have been like, as much as I love the graduation scene, if you wanted to make that third act have a little more stakes, is they don't ever wake up and they don't make it to graduation, and that's their punishment is, oh, we'll still graduate you, but you have to now go and work on this BS project with a mobile RV that we're trying to turn into a tank.
Hey,
Like
Right.
that's your
he
sort of punishment that
he
you can
wanted that Winnebago since the first act. I'm just saying. That Winnebago was foreshadowed in the like first 15 minutes.
That is fair. That is
He
fair.
got his Winnebago.
A James Bond Winnebago with
It
that.
just happens to be able to shoot missiles and shoot fire out the side.
I do love the fire. Like, there's
See,
some
and that's one
really,
thing,
there are
and
some
that is
good
one of the things I
moments
do
in
like.
the third act.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's the RV is one of those things that I love about the third act because it is so obnoxiously stupid. Because this is nothing that the military would actually do. And yet, because from the outside, I mean, even with the curtains for the windows, that they're there
It's like
for
a
the
hippie
aesthetic.
Right.
Batmobile.
Yeah, you know, but like, oh well, they got themselves caught because they were gonna go try to find us because we stole the RV. So now we're gonna go take said RV and we're gonna go break our friends out of Germany.
Yeah. All this stuff. Well, I think, yeah, it starts off the problem with that the brass would have seen these guys coming out at graduation like this, despite the fact that they, did such a performance. I somehow doubt that they would go, this right here. These are the guys that we need for this
Mm-hmm.
top level project with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get past that suspension of disbelief, I guess then it's easier to get into the ridiculousness of the rest of it. But yeah, it does kind of fall apart for me too. But there's still moments that
Oh yeah.
that are definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh please, they would have got kicked out of the military in the first like
Oh, yeah.
30 minutes of this movie, including the MPs who kept bailing them out.
Exactly. And I don't
Yeah.
think they would have gotten a hero's welcome as they went to Leavenworth.
But that's one thing
I
I
don't.
like about this movie is that it's completely bonkers to the point where
Right.
like none of
Right.
it is believable,
Yeah.
but that's what makes it fun.
I mean, I'm not a military man, but I would assume there would be some repercussions for this little incident,
Mm-hmm.
other than just the captain going to Alaska. So,
Yeah.
but it's still. I mean, and it's always good when Joe Flaherty shows up. It's the more SCTV guys that show up in the movie. Got Dave Thomas in the mud wrestling scene, and
You bring up one of the things that I wanted to bring up is some of the unsung heroes of this film because we know that we've got the synergy of Ivan Reitman and Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and whatnot, but those secondary characters outside of one of the most famous SCTV guys, John Candy, is yes Dave Thomas, Joe Flaherty, who just they're in there for what they need to be in there, but for what little bit they're in there, they crush it.
Yep.
Like those are the familiar faces I enjoy seeing every time I watch this movie, especially Joe Flaherty as the guard.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah. Those are great scenes.
His accent's amazing.
Yep.
And who knows what I'm sure they were just. I'm assuming they were making up a language to themselves because there was no,
Yeah.
they were talking shit, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But also, even the other secondary players, the guys in the army with them, a lot of these guys. This was a pretty big launching pad for Judge Reinhold.
Yep.
Yeah.
Apparently,
I'm blanking.
Bill Paxton is one of the
Bill Paxton
characters.
is a soldier somewhere. I've never spotted him. I know he's in there.
Yeah, I
he's in
haven't
the
either.
credits, but I've never spotted him.
I was like actively looking for him this time around, and
Yeah.
I didn't see him.
It's like the R2D2 and C3PO carved in the chamber wall in Raiders Lost Ark. I know it's there. I've seen pictures, but I've never seen it myself.
How about the fact that this was only the second movie that Sean Young had made just before she made Blade Runner?
Yeah, this is
Dang.
pretty impressive debut for her too. I mean,
Uh-huh.
not debut,
Oh
but
my
debut.
god, I didn't even realize that was Sean Young until you just said that.
How do you not recognize Sean Young?
She
it's
looked
not like
familiar, but I was
it's
like,
not like
oh,
she's
it's
got a
probably
Dave
just 'cause I
Thomas kind of
watched this
role.
movie a long time ago, you know? Like I just presumed it was like, oh yeah, I
There you go.
remember her from
There you go.
from
Yeah.
Stripes.
There you go.
That's
There you
insane
go.
to me. Oh my gosh.
It's okay, Sam. Until I saw the credits, I forgot she was in this movie too. And I'm like, oh yeah, Sean Young's in this movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
I
both
didn't even
fail
see
me.
her.
You
I
both
didn't even
fail
see
me.
her
PJ
name
Souls
pop
is
up.
PJ Souls is the
Yeah.
one I remember of the two female
Yes.
leads the most out of
Me
this
too.
movie.
Well, she was a
Because
little more
it's-
dynamic of a character.
Yeah.
PJ was, but
Yeah.
I wonder if
Like-
the Shield game is how Sean Young got Dune then because of the personal shield. That might be a reach. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh,
But
man.
it's again going back to the second the guy played Cruiser John. Oh, I can't think, but
Candy?
that guy, he's been in a ton of stuff. He's one of those, oh, it's that guy guys, and
Mhm.
I was thinking about that with this guy right here.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. John.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of his last name, but anyway,
Oh, John
like-
Deal.
Deal, yeah,
Yes.
that's it. And then the Colonel, I'm blanking on his name, that actor's name too, but he was in every TV show in the 80s. He had a reoccurring character on A-Team. He had a reoccurring character on Magnum PI. He was on MacGyver. He was on shows where he'd play more than one character, and like from one season to the next, he'd be a completely different character. That's the kind of the guy showed up in so much stuff. Another one of those, oh, it's that guy, guys. So,
That's awesome.
let's just, I'm going to bring the room down a little bit, though. It is kind of hard for me to watch some of the movies like this nowadays because in back of my head, I go, oh, that guy's gone now. Oh, that guy's gone now. And so, and I mean, right away, you got Harold Ramis, and then, well, even
John Candy.
John
John
Candy.
Candy, Warren Oates again. Like I said, he died short-lived. Well, even the recruiter, the Army recruiter, it's William Lucking. He just died like 2 weeks ago, and he's one of those guys. He's showed up and everything. He did one of the most impressive things in a movie ever. Was he intimidated Dwayne Johnson in The Rundown? He was the crime boss that sent him down to the jungle to get his, and he and The Rock was like, "No, I'm not. Nope, you're whatever you say goes, boss." So that's impressive bit of acting right there. So
sounds like I need to rewatch the Rundown again.
You mean the best Dwayne Johnson movie? Yes, you do.
I love those early Dwayne Johnson movies. They're so good. They're
The
so
Rundown
good.
and Walking Tall are really good.
I'm
Yeah.
still for an ensemble cast. I'm still all for Be Cool.
Be Cool is good too. I like those early Dwayne movies. Yeah.
Gridiron Gang, like
yeah.
Some of the good ones.
John Candy in this movie, I think, is one of the heroes that we don't talk about enough out of this because it's obviously Bill Murray, Harold Ramis are the two big leads, And then you talk about the kind of crazy third act. But I'm like, John Candy is very pivotal to this entire movie and why I think many people like grew up with it and had it part of their lives.
Yeah.
First of all, how old is John Candy supposed to be in this? Because when his magazine comes up at the end, it says Teen Heartthrob. And I'm like, how old is John Candy supposed to be here? Is he supposed to be like right out of high school, like 18-year-old?
Yeah, because
No,
he's on
no.
like
Is that what we're?
Tiger Beat magazine that he's
It's
Right.
like a teen magazine. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
Tiger
just
Beat, I'm pretty sure.
it's just more for the joke of everybody
Right.
loves Ox kind of thing. You know.
I
Do
like to
think it's
believe that we're supposed to buy he's 18 years old.
Yeah, no. No, not at all. Not at all. But one of the things I do think, and I think one of the reasons why he works so well in this movie is because he is very good at his own version of ad-libbing, and I think that's something that Ivan Reitman probably let him have. Because I think of even like at the very beginning when he is talking to the girls about the steward, the flight attendants and all that stuff, whatever. I feel that was completely all on him. Like that just sounds like something that would have just been right off the cuff of his brain.
My
sure of it.
my favorite John Candy moment is when they're all talking about why they're in basic training. And his is essentially like, it's free and the gym is not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that sounds like something that just he's like, what am I gonna say? This is what I'm gonna say. I don't think that was written down. I think that was all Candy.
Mhm.
I think if we would have looked at this script back then, it would have just been highlighted notes of insert Candy ad lib here, insert Bill Murray ad lib here, kind of thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing with the poker game where he's No, I think you should bet it all.
You should go ahead, try to bluff me.
And also then when they get to Italy, no, you see, since we're in Italy, you have to make my buck. Now, if we were in Germany, I'd have to make your buck, but you need to make my buck.
And I do think that one of the reasons why that works though is because obviously we have what we have of Candy and whatnot, but of that guy, the guy we were talking about.
Yeah,
Just his ability just to play stupid
Yep.
so well, to play that naiveness so well.
No, when he in the scene where everyone's explaining why they're there, and I thought I better join before I get drafted.
Yeah.
And there's not a draft anymore. Was there? So there's so many the small parts are so good that helps this movie out so much for all its shortcomings, is that there's these little gems throughout with a lot of the secondary and characters like that, and so it's
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of like the secondary ones that even if they're very secondary or don't have a whole lot of dialogue, they still own their character,
right.
And
Yeah.
everybody plays a very solid role, no matter how minor it might be comparative, to try to basically hold shoulder with the likes of Bill Murray, John Candy, Harold Ramis and whatnot. That takes a lot. I mean, like you said, like Judge Reinhold, this is a very early movie of his, to have him to try to keep up with the whole being high, that he's holding,
Right.
and to try to make that scene with Harold Ramis, he's probably half giggling to be the character and half giggling because he's trying to just make it through the scene because
Exactly.
he's up against Harold Ramis.
I was going to say, I feel in that scene especially, and kind of throughout this movie, Harold Ramis just kind of has this smirk on his face, like this entire movie, especially that scene with Judge Reinhold where he's introduced and he's like, "Man, you holding?" And like Harold Ramis is like bobbing his head along, kind of just smiling. I'm like, are you trying to act or are you just trying not to laugh?
Yeah.
And he has that a couple times throughout this movie, and it makes it that much more funny.
Mm-hmm.
Even in his early, like his introductory scene in the classroom, like when he holds up the basic English sign, it looks like he's about to bust up laughing. Like, it's just, you can tell he knows where these scenes are going. and it's almost like he's just anticipating that. Like, I don't know, I just love it. I love movies where it looks like they're genuinely having fun. Like, I think that comes through in, like, you can have a pretty, like, garbage comedy, and if everybody is having fun on set, it's still going to be entertaining. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's not me saying Stripes is a garbage comedy. Stripes is pretty brilliant when it wants to be. But yeah, I think with Ivan Reitman movies in particular, and even like his son, I feel this. He populates his movies with actors that know what they're doing, and he trusts them to do their thing. And I think that's carried over to Jason Reitman movies, because I mean, you look at like his movies like Juno, Young Adult, Up in the Air, you know, like those are movies that are very much elevated by the performances in them. And I would say that about just about any Ivan Reitman movie I've seen too, is like, yeah, the premises usually are pretty good, but it's the performances and the actors that populate them that really make them classics, you know?
Yeah, I
I
think
think that's just as important for a director to like trust the people you're collaborating with, as opposed to, you know, like micromanaging everything.
And I think that goes even more so with a comedy director, because you're not necessarily building scenes and building depth for characters and building arcs. You're like, I need to make sure these jokes flow, and it flows into the next scene and or to the next joke, and everything just kind of flows smoothly. And that just goes into, giving almost 100% trust to your actors to understand the material, know what they're doing, improvise where they need to, but hit all the comedic marks you need to hit throughout the movie. And yeah, he does that in pretty much any movie. And I think, I mean, we covered Meatballs previously on the podcast, like over a year ago, when we talked about like summer camp movies. And that movie is only Bill Murray. And I think that's the detriment to Meatballs, where it's, well, if Bill Murray's not on screen doing his thing, I don't care. There's not enough of those actors that you could just give that free reign to at that time. Whereas this one, it's nearly everyone in the cast. You could just give them a scene and just have them go nuts with it, and it's still just going to be just as funny and build to the overall story and what this movie is trying to portray. Especially like John Larroquette is like, you wouldn't think to give that character so much like free reign, but I'm like, he is just having so much fun being this adult 8-year-old boy playing in the army, and it's so funny.
He's
That's
Deputy
what makes
Doofy
it
before
work.
Scary Movie comes out.
Yep.
Like,
no, it's funny how you make reference about like the, if you do have that one actor who's kind of the star of your movie, you do still need to surround them with good people and whatnot, because like you made like how that's the difference between Meatballs and this kind of thing, right? To the point where for a hot minute there, I forgot we did Meatballs last year. Because you're absolutely right. It's one of those movies that it's very iconic and memorable, that people remember that Meatballs is a thing, but at the same time too, you kind of forget anything about Meatballs other than just Bill Murray's in the movie. Whereas this one here, there's so many people you come back to. You're like, oh yeah, John Candy, of course, because you think of the mud wrestling scene. John Reinhold, again, the stoner who wants to know if Harold Ramis is packing. Harold Ramis not being Egon makes you remember him. That sort of thing. Like, there's so many memorable things about this movie.
Let's not forget Psycho. Francis.
I know.
That is
never call me Francis.
Don't call him Francis. He'll kill you.
As of all there's so many quotes from this movie that me and my circle of friends used over the years, but one of the ones that I still use to this day is "Lighten up, Francis." That's and even little throwaway lines when John Larroquette, toward the beginning, when he turns to walk off and he kind of stumbles over something, and he turns to his aide and says, "Have that removed." We used to say that all the time. It's just when one of us would trip on the sidewalk or something, just have that removed.
Or when he gives the guy the grenade and he runs out of the room and you just hear this explosion go off.
And in the 80s, Lean Mean Fighting Machine was said before a lot of wrestling matches. So that's
I would say for me, the one that I grew up with, and a part of it is because the very iconic graduation scene. Because if there's anything that anybody ever remembers from this movie, is that graduation scene. But is where's your drill sergeant? Blowed up, sir. And that is what I've always remembered is just because I even wanted I would almost imagine again the whole going back to Bill Murray just improvising everything is something just tells me is that he's just like, you know what, I can't even say he's been blown up. No, I got to make it stupid sounding and be like he's blowed up.
Mm-hmm. I think another unsung hero of this movie is something that no one talks about really, and it's something that always sticks in my head, and it's in my head right now, is the score for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think the score for this movie is just super iconic, and you have the Stripes theme. Just I have it running through my head like all day since I've watched this. It's just been stuck in my head, and I'm like, to think Elmer Bernstein is the one doing the score, who does these big epic Hollywood movies and a Bill Murray comedy.
Yeah.
Didn't he do the score to Animal House as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing about the score to this movie though is it's very much has that Stripes theme and everything like that, but at the same time too it very much has, for me it has a very much a Western feel to it in terms of just how it's structured. Like I would picture like you could have this score over an actual like Western film,
Sure.
and it would still work. But even to the point, because of that whole same instance, I went to go check to see who the composer was, because I was having flashbacks of the score that Alvin Silvestri did for Back to the Future 3.
Oh yeah.
Because there's some of those,
Yep.
just those, the way that the notes are in just that, like I said, from the Western side of it, it felt very similar. But at the same time too, like, no, this is the Stripes theme. I know because I've heard it 17 times already.
Actually, that just got me thinking, go back to Sam's point about Police Academy. They kind of tried to do the same thing with the music in that too. They tried to create a very kind of iconic score to go behind the very similar plot.
Police Academy has its theme too. You can't argue that at all.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's I think, well, I don't know. Never mind. We'll get to that later. I was just gonna say something, but it spoils our final question. So.
Okay.
Well, I'm almost there. Do you guys have any other scenes or moments from the movie you guys want to bring up before we jump into final thoughts and our final question after that?
I just, going back to the beginning, I seriously think that basic English class with Harold Ramis is one of the funniest scenes in any comedy. Every time the entire class repeats, "Son of bitch, shit," it just like cracks me up. It's the funniest thing because I'm like, yeah, these guys live in like a city. I don't know which city. I can't remember. Are they in New York? I don't know. They live in a big city in America. Like, yeah, you hear that on the street all the time.
According to the plot of this movie, it says Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty big. That's a big metropolitan area. You're gonna hear angry people yelling stuff like that, and so like the fact that that's the English that these people are picking up just cracks me up because I'm like, yeah, that's America in a nutshell, even today.
It does set the tone too for the whole those very beginning scenes.
Yeah.
Well, obviously Bill Murray's just showing what
Bill
kind of
Murray
guy he is,
losing his car and his job.
One of my favorite scenes is after his lady friend leaves him and Harold Ramis shows up to the apartment. He throws the
basketball
out the
I was
window.
gonna say, yep.
And then he tries to get it back, and it goes through the other window right next to him.
And Harold Ramis just like he kind of flinches and then just takes another drink of beer.
I would like to add in regards to the beer that they split, and then once Bill Murray actually gets to go take his drink of it, he realizes Harold Ramis has drank the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thanks for splitting the beer.
That's another one of the off-quoted lines was when Bill Murray's girlfriend leaves, and then depression set in. You say that one all the time too.
Oh,
He's like like the last thing he says before she leaves is like come back, the plants will die.
Yeah.
That's his final plea, is that the plants will die.
That line cracked me up so much. See, here's the thing. I would watch Stripes even if there wasn't any military. Like, if they never went to basic training or anything like that, if it was literally just about Bill Murray and Harold Ramis hanging out in the city of Louisville, Kentucky, just being slackers, being terrible ESL teachers, and being unemployed cab drivers, that would be all I would need from the movie.
That would have worked as
That
a
first
movie too.
act
Yep.
is so fun.
Well, I
Richard
think that,
Linklater would have directed that in like 1991.
Yeah, exactly.
and I think that goes into what, like, when we talked about, Animal House, Caddyshack, Stripes. It's like, it's just like taking the simple concept of kind of like these goofball stoner slackers and then putting them into a situation. That's all it is Animal House is in the sorority, or fraternity, and Caddyshack's on a golf course. This is in the army. Like, it's just taking that concept, putting fun characters into a situation we can all kind of know and understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to go into my final thoughts, because I'm going to put it like how I feel about Animal House and Caddyshack is how I feel about Stripes. Like, they fall into that same category for me of, they're not my favorite comedies of all time, but I'm like, every time I'm watching them, I still laugh my ass off because they're hilarious. Yeah. Are they dated? Sure.
Absolutely.
But it was the late 70s, early 80s. Like, that was just the comedy of the times. I don't think it's dated enough for, like, I can't even watch this anymore. No, it's not like that. It's like, okay.
It's easier to watch this than watch a Kevin Spacey movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier to watch this
knowing
movie
what we
than
know
to listen
now.
to a Bill Cosby record.
Exactly. Like, would I go back to Stripes or would I go to Leonard Part 6? I mean, it's not that hard of a decision.
Even before we knew the stuff about Cosby, that was a pretty easy decision, I think. But you know,
all right, Ghost Dad. All right, I got it.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah,
we broke Casey.
That's all I gotta say about this movie. I like Stripes. It's a good movie.
And
I enjoy the movie. Like, I hadn't seen it in I don't know how many years, but like I said, it was kind of almost an every weekend thing when I was in high school. So that was one of the ones that was thrown in. So that there's a certain, I'm not a big nostalgic guy, but there's a certain amount of nostalgia for me seeing it again. So
yeah. For me, I certainly say for the sake of for the age of the movie, for when the movie was made, it's a damn near almost perfect movie. Do I think there's a little bit of issue with that whole third part, like what Sam talked about? Absolutely, but I'm not gonna knock it because movies were made differently back then. Like to Casey's point, we don't make movies today like we made movies in 1981. So I'm not going to knock a movie. Now, it's like going back to the guy that says, you put that tweet out 10 years ago, kind of thing. No, if this movie was made today, no, the movie that would be made today would not be anything like what we got in 1981 that we got 30 years ago. But again, things were different 30 years ago. So,
40 years ago.
Sorry, don't make me feel any older than I actually am, Casey. 40
That's
years
crazy
later.
to me.
Yes, so 40 years ago when this movie was made. So I still stand by this movie, dated and all as it is.
Yeah. I do. I like this movie a lot. I love the first two acts. I think as a kid, I always had the right idea, just kind of either turning it off or doing my own thing after the graduation ceremony made it a perfect movie. And it's not that I don't like the third act at all. It's just that I think it's a step down from everything that comes before it. So I
there's not a moment where you're waiting for, I remember that joke. in the third act.
Yeah.
That's I think the biggest missing part is, oh, I
Yeah.
remember that joke, or I'm waiting for that joke to happen.
Oh, I have a
It
few of
just
those
feels
in
a
the third
little-
act.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know. Like, there's just not as much in the third act that connects with me. That said, this movie, when it nails it, it really nails it. And I had a blast watching this again. It's so much fun. There were a few moments where it was like, oh my God, yeah, I forgot that was in it. But you know, overall, yeah, for being a comedy from 1981, this is such a fun time. I dig Stripes, and I'm
You know what?
I'm glad it's on Netflix right now. Kind of getting like another. I feel like I'm seeing it pop up on Letterboxd a little bit more, and I'm like, hey, that's cool. Like more people might be discovering this because it's on Netflix now.
Mhm.
You know,
It was
Netflix
just-
should just have a skip option once you get to that 1 hour 15-minute mark.
I think we have the technology for that.
Yeah,
Maybe not.
Yeah, it's called Stop.
you just
You know-
just hit the skip button and it goes right to the magazine cover.
Something that just occurred to me. I wonder if this wasn't one of the, if not the first, one of the first movies that had the "I'm getting too old for this shit" line. At the very end, when Warren Oates is on top of the RV. When
I
I was
know
wondering that too.
I noticed that too, because I literally just watched Lethal Weapon like 3 days ago, and I'm like, huh.
Yeah,
It's got to be one of the first, if not the first. I'm
Mhm.
not sure, but
yeah.
Every movie is taking from Stripes. That's what we're coming to the conclusion of.
Yep.
It's very influential.
Mhm.
Even in yeah, it's crazy.
All right, to get to the last question that we got, the penultimate question. If you're going to watch Stripes with another movie for the ultimate Stripes double feature, what movie are you guys going to pair it with?
It's easy. Police Academy. Gotta go with my boy Gutenberg. I dig Police Academy. I love those movies so much. I think it just the whole time I was watching Stripes, I legit almost just put on Police Academy after I finished Stripes today because I was like, I just feel like watching Police Academy now.
Mm-hmm.
Now you just got to watch through all of them. All of
I
them,
think
of like 8
I'm
of them.
pretty sure HBO has all of them, and
I
I'm
think
very
you are correct.
excited.
I think I'm just gonna go the easy route and just do the good old Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and go with Ghostbusters, just because you just continue the train of the great work that these two do together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
okay. I'm gonna throw a few out of potentials, and there's gonna be one real big oddball in there. One, if you're doing similar concepts, 80s movies, Private Benjamin with Goldie Hawn. Don't know if any of you guys have ever seen that.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
It was a pretty big movie in its day, but it's the female perspective of it, I guess, because Goldie Hawn's character is lost in her life and she decides to join the military and doesn't quite work out for her like she thinks it's going to when she goes to basic, and there's a drill sergeant that she hates, and so there's very similar things like that. We could go 1941, the Steven Spielberg comedy that was a bomb at its time, and it's not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot of great individual things in it, and the reason I picked that one was again for Warren Oates. The scene with Warren Oates and John Belushi in that movie is worth the whole experience right there. Just that one scene. And for the real oddball one, this is also a Warren Oates connection. Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia. Because it's such a completely different movie, and you'll see Warren Oates in a completely different situation. And like I said, I love Warren Oates. I'd watch him in anything. So Sam Peckinpah movie, violent, well, the title alone, "Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia," that should tell you a lot. There's a spot where Chris Christopherson just kind of randomly shows up in it, and he's a horrible person. Oh, it's great. I love that movie. So, but it's just that's your oddball one if you're going to have connections for them. So
I'm gonna add all three of those to my watch list. They all sound really interesting.
Yeah, 1941 is the one that immediately just comes to mind because it's like, oh, you had the Belushi connection to everybody else in this movie doing a wartime movie. I'm gonna go with we have a 1980s army comedy. I'm gonna pick. I can't decide which one, so I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna pick two 90s war comedies, army comedies.
One of them stars Mr.
One of them does star Mr.
himself.
Pauly Shore.
Yes.
In the army now.
I had a quick moment before you started. I was like, why did I not pick In the Army Now?
Which is, I feel like I need to rewatch that. And then
I saw that in the theater.
A childhood staple of mine that I just rewatched, and I don't know why I liked it as a kid. I guess it's a movie. Major Payne is my other one.
I love Major Payne. Okay, I haven't seen it since I was a kid either. But are you telling me I shouldn't watch it as an adult? Then?
You should watch it. It's fine. It's
okay.
It's just not as great of like when I was a kid. I was like, yeah, Major Payne is the best movie ever, and I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah,
he'll put it over there with Blank Man.
It's better than Blank Man. Yeah, so that's it. So that's Stripes. I guess like Sam said, it is on Netflix right now. So if you guys are looking to
check it out,
rewatch it, check it out. If you didn't make it to the Sioux Falls State Theater, so yeah, we'll jump into the plugs for us here. Brian, do you need to step out? I can take over your
Nope.
You good?
That's why I stepped out for a hot minute there.
Okay. Well, Brian gets to do his plugs yet. We'll start with yours then. Where can they find us on the social medias on the webs?
On the social medias, they check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd HQ. For 2 days I've been having problems talking. All at Backlot 605. Also on Facebook, check us out, South Dakota Film Community Group. Join the conversation. Film lovers, film enthusiasts, film, just everything, including filmmakers. We just enjoy having a conversation, talking about movies. Derek is really good about really showing how old some of us really are with some of the movies and how old they are. Like, for instance, he just let us know that, we're on the 25th anniversary of Space Jam. Amongst many other things. So yeah, definitely come check us out on all the socials.
Yeah, if you like this podcast and you want to hear some more of what we got going on, you want to hear the rest of Ivan Reitman Month, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. So if you could, give us a subscribe on any and all of those that you guys listen to your podcasts on. And if you want to see the video version of this, that's where you find us on YouTube.
Yes. We're cute on YouTube. Is that it?
And if you like this and you want even more content, you can join us on Patreon for $5 a month. You can get 4 bonus episodes a month. We do one weekly, typically on new releases and or cult classics that are related to something going on in the news. So this month we did. Oh my gosh, I've seen.
Come on, Sam, you got this. Your favorite movie ever? Last Night in Soho.
Yes, Last Night in Soho, one of the best movies of the year. We did that one. We did Eternals. That's right. We are getting ready to record a Red Notice episode that will be out this week and next week, of course, because it's Ivan Reitman Month. We will be doing a Patreon episode on his son's movie, Ghostbusters Afterlife, which we are all very excited to check out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you want to join those conversations on Patreon, we also do like polls and things like that. There's a lot of fun stuff, so go ahead and check us out there.
And Bill, remind us again where people can find you online.
Sure, I do have a website, williamdegeest.com. There's short stories on there, flash fiction, all kinds of genres. Don't have the attention span apparently to stick to one type. So I have, if you check out Man and Waker Studios Flash Fiction podcast on Spotify or YouTube or his website, I have a short story on there, a piece of flash fiction called Visitor at the Door, if you want to check that out. I am currently working on doing a self-published collection of short stories that I was going to try to get out last year, but life kind of happened. And so I'm hoping to get that going by this spring. Will be short stories, again, illustrations by myself and some friends of mine, including Sioux Falls area comic book artist Clara Meath will have some illustrations in it. So that's
Awesome.
up and coming. And again, social medias at William DeGeest on Twitter and at William_DeGeest on Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
Awesome.
Anybody wants to check any of that out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
Thank you guys.
To talk about Stripes.
I appreciate the invite. It was good talking to you, and I had a fun conversation with you guys. So
absolutely,
this was great. Thank you for being on.
I got two more things I want to throw out really quickly before we end the show. Coming up next week, the 24th, Wednesday night, we're going back to Full Circle Book Co-op for a monthly film community meetup. 6:00 start time for that. And then coming up on December 2nd, we are going to have another live podcast. We're ranking the 20 best Christmas movies of all time. Again, December 2nd, that's a Thursday night, 7:00, Average Joe's Gaming in South Dakota. We're going to be talking about the greatest Christmas movies of all time. What will make it, what will not make it on that list.
That's like not that far away. I
that
just
is not
realized.
that far away.
I have
you better
so
start
many
watching
Christmas
some Christmas movies
to watch.
You better
Well,
get started.
Hopefully one of these days I'll make it back down to the Sioux Falls area and make it to some of your guys' things, and that would be great.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That would be awesome.
I know Jason and Sean at Full Circle too, so I like those guys, so that's a good place to go. And
they're good dudes.
Yeah, so but yeah, just nothing against where I live now, other than there's not a lot of things going on. Closest theater is 45 minutes away, so yeah, so it's
well, that's what these Zoom type chats are for. That's why we got to have you on
modern technology.
We got to have you back on sooner than later. But yeah, that's been our episode on Stripes. Bill, thank you again so much. We absolutely have to have you back. We'll talk to you after the show and see what other movies you'd like to talk about.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
All right, for Sam Lenz, Brian Mensing, I'm Casey Kelderman. We'll talk to you next time on the Backlot of South Dakota. Peace.
Bye.